Hi there. Welcome to our latest Ask the Expert series. Today talking with Jen Warman. Jen has been in the insurance business, specifically in the small business insurance business, for over 10 years. She's helped hundreds of clients work on different solutions. And today we're going to talk about, your business and what does your business need. So Jen, welcome to Ask the Experts for Support Local. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's always great to have experts in their fields, donate their time to answer some of these questions. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day today. Um, what drew you to insurance? Why did you get in insurance?
Oh goodness. Insurance is one of those really weird careers where no one plans to go into insurance. It just kind of happens. So I did have a real estate background and all of a sudden found myself as a single mom and the market crashed and I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of hard. So I'm like, what seems to be more steady? So I asked when I was getting my car insurance and they were like, yeah, you can, take the fundamentals course and jump in and jump in. So I did that. I literally went home that night and signed up for fundamentals and took the course really quickly and got a job and just absolutely loved it. And then very quickly kind of took some more courses. There's like an endless amount of courses and designations for insurance. So I went through the CABE program, which is Canadian Accredited Insurance Brokers. I did that all in my first year. And then after that, started working on my Chartered Insurance Professional program. I received that designation a few years ago and have just been loving it. It's such a strange thing to be passionate about, but I absolutely love it, and especially the business side of the insurance thing.
Yeah, and that's interesting because obviously in insurance you can go different directions, right? You can get into, personal insurance or auto insurance or you name it. Everything needs to be insured these days. But
Absolutely.
specifically, you work in with small businesses. So, what's that been like?
Gosh, I love it. And yeah, I actually will work with all size businesses. And it's I just, the relationship that you can have with business owners as a broker is so much more than when you're just doing like the home insurance.
Mhm.
As that does tend to kind of fall to whoever's available in the branch. Whereas with businesses, we have our set clients and we form that relationship. And there is nothing cooler than seeing someone start out and grow and expand and being able to be their trusted advisor through that whole process. It's just amazing. And I like to be able to take something that's very complicated and scary and intimidating and break it down into kind of bite-sized pieces and take that off their shoulders.
Yeah, excellent. So because this is Support Local BC, we should also mention that Jen is in BC and works with BC businesses. So her information today is going to be targeted obviously to the market that we're in. So that's great to see as well. Now you mentioned now you mentioned about starting up and obviously business startups are one of the craziest things people can do. Becoming an entrepreneur, maybe for the first time, or maybe they haven't done it for a long time. Obviously, things have changed over the years. What does a startup need to worry about when it comes to insurance? What should they be thinking about?
Well, realistically, the best place to start is to find someone, a broker, to speak to that you are connecting with. So there's so many different exposures that you need to consider. So kind of the most basic thing when people are looking for business insurance is they'll look for commercial general liability policy, or a CGL is what people will call them. So that is the most common request. So if you're like a contractor, for example, working with a general contractor, they will most likely request that you have this and are carrying it, showing proof of it. If you're doing any sort of work on any sort of like public property, like the city, they're probably going to request a copy of it. Your home insurance provider is probably going to request a copy of it. So when everyone asking for that, for your CGL, it's basically a commercial general liability. And what that covers off is basically in case you cause bodily injury or property damage in the course of your operation. So if you are a contractor, for example, and you end up somehow damaging someone's home, like maybe you're, putting a nail in the wall and you end up hitting a pipe and then you like flood the whole house, something like
Or your
that.
employee does.
Exactly, exactly. Or in the most basic thing, if you do have like a home office or something like that, it could be even like the delivery person coming to your premises to pick up your orders or to deliver invoices or whatnot. If they slip and fall on your premises, it's not going to be covered by your home policy because they're there for the purpose of business.
Right.
So that is the most basic thing, the most common one. And then we kind of go into things that expand from there. So there is a multitude of different types of coverages. Like for myself, for example, I am an insurance professional. We have errors and omissions insurance or professional liability. So if I give bad advice and it causes a loss to someone else, they can come after me for that. So if you're doing consulting, any sort of those things, they might not have an exposure where people are coming to their home. So they might need instead the coverage for the advice they're giving.
Yeah, so if you're a lawyer or a doctor or, a real estate agent and stuff, where insurance is kind of inbred into those industries, it's like you cannot operate without insurance. But you've mentioned some scenarios. So specifically, you work a lot with contractors, obviously. You work a lot with,
Yes.
in the trades industries as well. Again, there's lots of opportunities for potential claims. So there's a number of different insurances that they might want to worry about beyond, the audio insurance or beyond, benefits for their employees and things like that. The insurance that, they have to worry about as a business per se. But you also mentioned home business. So is there anything else? So you gave the scenario of someone visiting the place. What if I never have, visitors to my house? How far does my home policy go before I should really be thinking about, commercial business insurance?
So the home policy is not going to cover anything unless it's been specifically added, because I do know some markets are able to accommodate that. But in general, they're not going to cover anything that is income generating.
Mm.
So you do have that additional exposure if you are making money, if you have a business from home, not if you're an employee, specifically if it's your own business.
Right.
Um, if you don't have any product, like you're not selling a product and having that product go out that could potentially injure someone, and you're not having anyone do deliveries, like you're literally just a consultant working from home, you might not need the commercial general liability. So if there is no opportunity for you to cause bodily injury or property damage to any third party,
Mhm.
you might not have that exposure. However, if you don't have that exposure, your operations are probably involving some sort of consulting, your advice, your knowledge, and you do have an exposure there. So even if you don't have the, like if you haven't decided to place that coverage, your home insurance company might require that because they could potentially, like if you get sued, they could potentially get brought into this lawsuit, even if they just have to get out of it. But it could incur costs, investigation costs to determine whether they need to be involved or not.
Right.
So most likely they're going to require you to carry something if you're operating from home. And that is also why it's best to talk to a broker, because if you just go and listen to the home insurance saying, oh, I need commercial insurance, you could just go and purchase, a CGL, commercial general liability, but it's not going to do anything for you. So if you've spoken to a broker, you're going to actually place the correct coverage that may potentially assist if you do have a loss. So you're not just throwing your money away.
So if you're a home-based business in this case, one piece of advice could be check with your home insurance provider, make sure that, things like your computer or other things are listed on there if your home insurance will allow for it. or they could reach out to you. Yes.
Absolutely. And you always do want to make sure that your home insurance company is aware, because if you are not advising, that is a material fact and
Right.
it could cause a denial of coverage, or, it could impact your home insurance. So if you are running a home-based business, just make sure that your insurance company is aware. They may decide to accept that and not require any additional coverage depending on your operations, but it's becoming more and more common that they do, because it is incurring so many costs for them to be involved with the potential um, cost to get out of the claim. Essentially, they won't ever cover it, but they could potentially have those costs if you do get sued due to your business operations.
Right. So when we talk about, you mentioned the word broker. So in this case, of course, you are a broker. What's the difference between working with someone like yourself versus, even like signing up for one of these online insurance companies, or, going through the questionnaire? What's the benefit to working with a broker versus even just the local office and walking in and getting a policy, sign off, and walking out again?
Absolutely. So, I mean, with the broker, the one big benefit is it doesn't cost you any money. The insurance companies pay us. So, why wouldn't you? Because essentially what we do is we work with a ton of different insurance companies. So we're able to market your risk. We know, which questions to ask, which coverages you need, which coverages you don't need. We can work with you kind of to determine that and then put it to our companies to find the best option. It really is a win-win situation for someone to use a broker as to not. The other thing is like coming down the line for renewals. Like I'm looking at my renewals about 90 days out, and if say market trends are saying an overall increase of 10%, but your renewal terms are coming in at like a 20% increase, I'm like, okay, well, that's not right. I need to send this out and find better options. So we're doing a ton of work in the background before you even are necessarily seeing your renewal terms. If you're just kind of blindly doing it yourself, you may be missing out on a lot of savings opportunities, a lot of coverage opportunities, and just not simply like having that professional, that advocate for you to help with all these things. As well, even for claims, like if you have a claim situation, we will take those details from you, connect you with the adjuster. And if for some reason communication breaks down with the adjuster, you're having a hard time getting hold of them, the claim's not going the way it should, like we are still your advocate. So we're stepping in and, making those connections and helping you through that process as much as we can. So there is a lot of benefit to having a broker. And again, it's not costing you money because we get paid by the insurance company. So it's like essentially almost just free advice, having this person that you can call and ask questions and, be your trusted professional.
Yeah, you mentioned, that relationship that you kind of develop with small businesses. That's something that I enjoy as well too, when I'm, whether it's consulting or whether it's particular services, getting to know the business and understanding their needs and what it is specifically. And as you said, as you get that relationship and you build that relationship, you're able to actually help identify things that they do need that maybe they didn't sign up for because they didn't know they needed it, or you're saving the money on things that they don't need. And again, we're might be experts in our own businesses. We might not be insurance experts. So I think that I love that win-win, and I think that's really the best. If someone operates under those premises, the win-win scenario, I think that's a good way to approach things. So, and Jen, I know from your clientele that they very much appreciate that personal relationship as well too. When we talk about costs, obviously, one of the reasons why some of these online insurance companies is they're saying that they're cheaper. So you've also covered, kind of identifying that even if someone decided to go that route, maybe they should talk to a broker first, even just to help identify, and then you've got a way to compare, right? So before we waste our time going through a whole sign up somewhere, give Jen a call and discuss, figure out what your needs are. Obviously, especially if they're in the trades, that's one of your specialties, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, realistically, the thing is, you don't necessarily know what you're buying when you're going with those options. Like if you don't have a broker explaining things to you, pointing out possible, exclusions and that, like you don't necessarily know where you're putting your money. So you could end up being paying for something that wouldn't necessarily benefit you. And again, because we are trained professionals, we are educated, we are insured, we have professional liability. So we do have a responsibility to make sure that we are explaining things, giving you the options. So you're definitely getting a lot more when you go through a broker as opposed to just trying to do it yourself if you're not necessarily familiar with all of the intricacies of those wordings and exclusions and whatnot.
Yeah. And nobody wants insurance until they need it, right? And I think
Gosh, no, no, it's the worst.
that's one of those things is when they do have a claim, how great would it be instead of having to do a chatbot AI or trying to get somebody a 1-800 number is no, hey, Jen's my broker, she can help me out.
Absolutely. I always tell my clients to call me first. I mean, granted, there'll be times when it's like the middle of the night and there'll be a claim, and we do always have a 1-800 number that you can call, but always call your broker first, especially if you can, because we can take that information from you and then relay it to the insurance company. And then again, if we're aware, we just have like if you don't tell us, we won't know. So keep us in the loop. We are happy to help. And we do want to be the advocates for our clients. Like, I can't even tell you how much I care about my clients and how I want the situation to go well. Like, I know that insurance companies have that reputation that we don't care and claims aren't being paid. It's not like that. Like, we genuinely want to see claims be paid. We want to see people be put right, and it breaks our hearts. It is the hugest stressor when things go sideways. So people don't necessarily realize how much we're hustling in the back to make things go smoothly for them.
Right. I think one of the other things that's important to talk about as well too is when we compare with the service that you offer as a broker versus maybe even just my local insurance company is in BC specifically, we've seen natural disasters, we've seen forest fires, we have seen pandemics, we have seen you name it, we've seen it. There's a number of different issues, even now, even without natural disasters that are affecting, property security and personal security, things like that, right? So when we talk about working with one office or one group, so one insurance company, their liability gets spread over all their claimants, right? Whereas opposed to working with you, you don't just work with one company. So what's the difference there when it comes to, we've heard stories about these insurance companies, you know, backing off their coverage or denying claims or not being able to get coverage. That's even worse in some areas. So how does a broker, fix that for small business? What do you do in those situations?
Yeah, so kind of back to like when I do look at my clients' renewals like 90 days out. We have in the past, oh, probably since like 2019-ish, like even pre-pandemic, we have seen a tightening of market, and there are companies pulling out of certain risks. It's very common. It happens every year where a certain class will just have too many claims and all of a sudden coverage becomes much harder to get. So the thing about using a broker is that we know those things, we know those market trends. So we can usually, so for example, the one that came up a few years ago was plumbers, where became a really hard class to insure. So any of our plumbers on our books, when we're starting to look out in the future, we're like, okay, well, who's doing plumbers? Who's got the best rates? Who's got the best options if they're doing this, this, this? So we would start marketing it because we do have access to so many markets to be able to find the best option. So you're not just stuck with like your 30 days notice. Oh, sorry, we can't renew you, which is what I have a lot of people come to me and they say, I've just been told I can't be renewed. and I've been given 30 days or sometimes even less, which I don't, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So the thing is, when you have that relationship, we are actively doing these things so that we have options for you the best we can. And if they're, it's very rare that we don't have options. Like we have so many different markets. And again, if you're working with someone that does have that knowledge and has those market relationships, we are able to kind of have a heads up as to when things are going south. There's a lot of things that, too, if they're coming up, like things that have changed where appetites change with the insurance companies. There's some weird things that sometimes like one of the things that I found weird is commercial residential risks. Like our commercial markets a few years ago also, a lot of them have stopped insuring residential risks. So, for example, like the home-based business, if you run a business from home, but it doesn't qualify under a home insurance program, or like a residential apartment buildings, like there's a whole bunch of different things that a lot of the commercial markets have pulled out of. So again, it's dealing with a broker that has a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge and a lot of access to market. So we can proactively identify these issues and find the best options. So you're not being stuck.
Right. So, you mentioned that you were in real estate back in the day, as was I. And of course, back then, we used to send our clients to mortgage brokers. And the reason being is that they had more things to choose from. They had more products to choose from. They had a larger inventory. It wasn't just, that bank's particular offering, take it or leave it, but a broker had access to that. So the same thing with insurance, then you have an inventory of providers that you can rely on. Even if we didn't know them, even if they don't have a retail store, you have a database. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I honestly couldn't even tell you how many we have. Um, the thing is, we will generally tend to only go to a few, because part of our service is also having those relationships with underwriters. So we want to keep our underwriters happy, and we generally will know, like, I'm not going to send something to an insurance company or an underwriter that I know they can't do. So you always want to just send it to the ones that are going to be a hit. But yeah, I think for a very complicated risk, I think the most I've sent it to once was like 30 different insurance companies. And yeah, we have a lot. That wasn't even an exhaustive list. Like that was just, for that particular risk.
Yeah. So I'm a small business. I have come to the realization, or I'm a startup and I'm exploring, what I need, or an existing business and I want to change providers, whatever the scenario is. How long does it take? Like, is this going to be a long drawn out process? You're on the island, so do I have to come to the island to see you? Like, how do I get this insurance done? How hard is it?
Yeah, so one of my things that I am most passionate about is making insurance easy and accessible for people, because it can be scary and intimidating, and people just don't like it. Like you said, it's true. So I have had times, if it's something very simple, we do have a few markets that we can instantly quote and bind. So we do, honestly, there have been times where I've taken that initial phone call and I have quote, bound, finished all on the first phone call. That is possible. However, that being said, that is only possible for very specific situations that fit into these little perfect boxes.
Right.
So that is not the expectation. I would say overall, expect about a week turnaround time. I can usually gather the information if it's a fairly simple, like a pretty conventional thing, like with lots of people doing it. I could probably do it in an initial phone call in like 5 to 10 minutes to gather the information and then leave it with me. And usually, if it's like a small business, fairly simple thing, couple day turnaround. Granted, it can sometimes take a bit longer, and depending on the complexity and it can be months process for certain risks, like a much larger operation, much more involved. Those can take longer, but for pretty simple ones, we do have a pretty quick turnaround. Um, like I said, though, I try to make that process as simple as possible.
Right.
Um, yeah.
And obviously, if it does take longer, it's because you've identified a need that needs to be addressed, or it's not like you're wasting time. It's just that's, you've now realized, hey, this needs a little more work. It's better to get it done now than find out later
And
and do it, right?
to be honest, most of the delays are to the insurance company because they are kind of inundated with submissions, and it is hard to find staff. Like a lot of the times the insurance companies are short staffed too.
Oh,
So the trick is getting the underwriter's attention. I am lucky having been in the business for a long time, and I do feel like I have some pretty good relationships with underwriters, and I don't like to waste their time. So I do find I have a pretty quick response time with a lot of them. That's also the whole being careful with like over sending to insurance companies. So that is another thing too, like if you're looking for a broker, like try to find someone you like because most likely the underwriters will like them too. It's just human nature.
yeah,
So yeah, it can definitely affect things with, but most of the time the delay is with the insurance companies, like having someone get eyes on things. I do find the best way to get eyes on it is to get as much detail as possible. So, like, if the person is like, if you're looking for a business insurance quote and you're for some reason hesitating to give information to your broker, that will hold things up.
right,
If we can't provide all the information, it does really limit us to what we can do. So the more you can tell your broker, the quicker, the better we can do for you. And the strange thing is even pricing. So like if you have pricing expectations, but you feel like you don't want to tell us because it's going to skew things, it's actually going to do the opposite. So if you could tell us like what your current price is, what you're hoping to pay, like those types of things, we actually can do better when we know that. Because if I'm going to an insurance company and saying, hey, this is what our target is, they might know right away if they're going to be over and under, and that's going to get that submission picked up faster. So anything that we can do to make an underwriter look at our submission quicker is going to help. So again, like if you're maybe having like for property insurance, for example, like if you can provide photos and updates, like all those things are going to help because it's going to just make a more complete submission. So the easier it is for the underwriter to basically look at it, one touch and quote, is the quicker and better rates that we're going to get back.
right. So in those scenarios, you don't get unless you ask, right? So if you have a particular budget you're trying to reach, then that's something that you can work with, right?
Absolutely. I always find it funny. I get a lot of like if someone sends me a copy of their policy, they'll cross out the price. And it's actually counterintuitive. Like we're not trying to hustle you out of money. Like we're trying to get you the best options. So if we know the price that we're working with, again, our underwriters want to help us too. So if we're like we're hoping to get this price, we have a much better time trying to get that than if we go in blind.
Right. So So if I'm applying for insurance, so I want to reach out to you, we're talking, as easy as a phone call or a video chat or something. I don't have to go anywhere. I can
Absolutely not.
schedule.
No, everything can be done remotely.
Perfect.
Yeah, most things are over phone or email. Anything signature wise, we have an e-signature service. Everything can be done remotely. So I am licensed for BC and Alberta. So I mean, most of my clients I'm not seeing in person. Most of everything is done remotely right now.
So I'm a small business and I've chosen to work with Jen. So one, I'm going to get the advice that my business needs specifically. I'm going to save time because I don't have to go anywhere. I can just do all of this over the phone or over the computer. Three, I'm gonna hopefully get the best price because she's able to shop it among more than one inventory availability. And I get that personal relationship before and after if I have to make a claim as well too. So it sounds like a no-brainer, Jen.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Win-win.
That's very good. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully we've answered a few burning questions that small businesses haven't considered, or if we didn't cover it, what do they do?
You call me.
Yeah,
So
easy.
my phone number is 250-824-2905. My email, jen.warman, JEN.WARRMAN at Acera, ACERA.ca.
And we're going to provide that in links below, and on the website, of course, there'll be a contact form that you can fill out and reach out directly to Jen as well too. So thanks for joining, and thanks for becoming one of our Ask the Experts with Support Local BC.
Thank you so much for having me.